as we were critical yesterday that they weren't clear in their criticisms and their critique. They'd focused on the nuances of the argument, technicalities on whether the right declaration had been made on a Liberal ad. Today, it was much more direct. Let's have a look at some of the exchanges in the Parliament.
Does the Prime Minister regret saying that volunteer firefighters don't need economic compensation for lost income because they, quote, want to be out there?
The Prime Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And once again, the Leader of the Opposition is misrepresenting what occurred for political purposes.
Members on my left, the member for Isaacs.
For political purposes.
Does the Prime Minister regret saying he had a conversation with a bushfire survivor who lost her home in Cobargo when video clearly shows there wasn't a conversation? He forced her to shake his hand and then turned his back on her as she asked for help.
Mr. Speaker, when you're Prime Minister, you turn up and you listen, and whatever comes at you, Mr. Speaker,
members
you are
on my
prepared
left
to do that. I don't think that helps for the opposition to be engaging in this sort of low-rent behaviour, and it doesn't help anybody recover from the fires. All I know is I was in Cobargo. I was in Cobargo, I was there for the people of Cobargo, and I'll be there for the people of Cobargo into the future as well, and they know it.
Does the Prime Minister regret telling communities devastated by the bushfires that the economic impact, quote, could well prove to be positive?
Once we work through the recovery arrangements across all the bushfire-affected areas, once we get past the devastation that has impacted all of these bushfire-affected areas, there will be a recovery, there will be a rebuilding, there will be significant economic activity going into these areas to rebuild these communities, and that will support their economies when that occurs.
The Prime Minister there and accused Labor of low-rent behaviour and politicising the fires. What did you make of the exchanges today, Andrew, in the context of our critique yesterday? Both of us of the view that Labor missed an opportunity yesterday. Did they make up for it today?
Well, did they ever? I mean, they absolutely went for it, Kieran. And, you know, I was speculating yesterday whether Anthony Albanese had the mongrel for the job. I think that's kind of been proved today. It was almost as if they were listening to us. I mean, essentially, they have just gone for broke. They've gone for going for about 30–40% to just going as hard as you possibly can. Now, he's responded, the Prime Minister, by saying the attacks are grubby, low-rent behaviour. When Terry Butler got up to ask that question, there was an interjection from the government side saying high class, and definitely, you know, noises from both sides in terms of, you know, the strength of the attack from Labor on the other side feeling it was going too far. So it really was action-packed, and they were taking in all the Morrison mistakes over the summer and hitting him one by one, things that people say he shouldn't have said. I don't hold a hose, firefighters don't want the payment. And to some extent, some of Morrison's replies were strong, I thought, and good. Others, I felt he fell into the trap a little bit and just kept talking about politicisation. So he half got there, I think, the Prime Minister, but under sustained attack, I think there were some answers he could have handled a bit better, but I've rarely seen him under such fire. Have you, Kieran?
No, that was, as you say, they didn't leave anything in the tank when it came to the attack. The best response that Scott Morrison gave was when he did show some regret. He said, I've expressed my view outside of this place when I feel like I could have done things differently, or words to that effect. And to be honest, that humility and that sort of honesty was, I believe, one of the best answers he gave. He said, I showed up and I'll keep showing up. And that sort of approach, that honesty, it gives you a little taste, not an exact replica, but a taste of what Peter Beattie used to do to great effect as Queensland Premier in just being frank when you stuff up.
I completely agree with what you're saying. So this is the test for the PM, because you could tell from his answers that he obviously thinks it's unfair and it's gone too far. The real test of your mettle in this situation, and what the public want to see a lot of the time, I think, is that humility. And then they'll come to the view that Labor are being unfair, and that will help you. But it's extremely hard, especially when the voices rise from the opposition side, to stay that way. I thought he had one good strong line in there, which is, I don't regret returning from holiday early. I don't regret putting in 3,000 reservists. So he fought back well there. But there were a couple of occasions where it just kind of almost looked too much for him, you know, and he has to realise as Prime Minister, whether it seems fair or not, he's in the job, he has to front up. I don't think he'll get many days as hard as this one. This is the hardest, and it's the end of the week, and that's a good thing for him.